What is retainage in a contract? Well, I'm sure that you've asked yourself, why is money being held from my payment? For most of us in the construction industry, we refer to this as retention. Now, retention is the opportunity to be able to ensure a financial incentive at the end of the project to make sure that everyone does their job the way that they're supposed to. And in construction, we know that this is often very interpretational. So by holding money at the end of the project, we're going to ensure that the project gets done the way that the owner wants it done. Have you ever wondered why there's a portion of your payment that gets held at the end of the project? Maybe it even causes you some financial burden. Or how are you going to get the retention back? These are all things that we're going to talk about throughout this entire video. So, what is retention? Retention is an agreed upon amount. Now, I say agreed upon because it's in a contract that you've signed. In that contract, it is identified a percentage of money that's going to be withheld from the total dollar amount of your contract. Now, usually this is identified in single task items that you're going to find in your schedule of values. But the retention is going to be an amount of money that is going to ensure that you complete that particular task the way that contractually it is supposed to be done. The reason why retention and understanding retention is so important for contractors is because this is capital necessary for them to be able to run their business. If they can't get a hold of that money and use it, then it is being stored somewhere to someone else's benefit. So for many, retention is going to have an impact on their cash flow. This is money that they could be using to purchase other materials or to be able to use for the capital of the project. But what retention is doing for the owner is providing an insurance policy. It's making sure that the contractor is going to be completing the scope of work as the contract has laid out. Now, retention can be something that many often see as a penalty to the contractor, something that keeps the contractor from being able to get their money even after the contractor's been long and gone off of this project. And those are things that you should be negotiating in your contract to ensure that you can get the release of your retention when it is applicable to that particular scope of work. So let's use an example. An example would be a grading contractor. They're going to come into a vacant piece of property and they're going to grade it beautifully, and then there's going to be another subcontractor who's going to accept that final elevation before they start digging their footings. Well, once they've dug their footings, then that grading contractor initially has completed his work 100%. But if that project is taking that building in the next 2 years of work, then the retention on the grading contractor's scope of work is still being held until the end of the project. Now, this doesn't seem very fair, and this would be something that you would be able to negotiate in your contract to ensure that you can keep that cash flow with your company. As with anything that deals with money, we're going to have legal implications that we need to be aware of. So, depending on your state or the different types of work that you perform, or the different scope of work that's being performed, is going to be important when understanding your legal obligation and requirements in having a retention for that particular scope of work. So these are things that you would know in order to be able to have those points for negotiation when you're working with the general contractor or with the owner in trying to reduce those restrictions or criteria that's been held on retention. So, are you curious about how to get your retainage back? Well, we talked about one way, and that is through negotiations of your contract. So, making sure that you know the terms and conditions of your contract and that you know your scope of work and where that is going to be performed in the schedule of the contract. So, are you curious about what it's going to take to be able to get your retainage back? Well, we already did talk about one, and that is the negotiation of that contract. Knowing the terms and conditions of your contract and the legal implications is going to be critical when you move into negotiations. The other thing that you can do is to make sure that you're staying on top of that schedule, that you're focusing early and often on the progress of the project and identifying when your scope of work is 100% complete and that there is no other work to be performed. This would be a perfect opportunity to be able to go back to the owner and to the general contractor and plead common sense in helping them understand that there really is no purpose for holding on to your retention. Understanding retention is critical in managing your money flow for a project. To learn more about it, please make sure to look at the Construction Management Online curriculum, where we're going to help you understand how to manage your cash flow, how to be able to put in place strategies for getting back your retention, and how to keep your projects financially sound.